According to the Bible, after Adam and Eve were banished from the Garden of Eden, they went on to start a family. They had 2 sons, namely Cain and Abel, but Cain killed his brother Abel, which highlights mankind's wickedness from the start. It's interesting that God heard Abel's blood cry out to him from the ground, because blood is referred to as nephash, which is also translated as soul. In Leviticus chapter 17, verse 11, we're told, "The life of the flesh is in the blood." The blood contains the essence of a creature, its DNA, like Jesus' blood contained God's DNA. Presumably, God equally heard Jesus' blood cry out to him from the ground, and he hears the blood of all those who are sacrificed by evil people. Cain moved east of Eden to the land of Nod, and subsequently named the first city he built after his son Enoch. According to Jewish historian Flavius Josephus, who died at the end of the 1st century, Cain built 7 cities, and he was the father of evil, violence, and corruption. Adam and Eve had another son, Seth. Adam lived to 930 years young, and he had other sons and daughters. God had told Adam and Eve to multiply and fill the earth, and they did. The oldest man who ever lived was Methuselah, who lived to 969 years young. The early humans had copious amounts of children because they lived for so long, like circa 800 to 900 years, long time. And their climate was very different to the world's today. It was a universally lush, oxygen-rich, subtropical climate, which enabled animals and vegetation to grow much larger. God created the Diplodocus, but many animals and birds and other creatures grew to 3 to 4 times larger, like tortoises grew to the size of small cars. And humans were smart from the start, engineering cities and so forth. They weren't thick cavemen. Adam and Eve and their children were educated in the 7 sacred sciences, namely mathematics, astronomy, geometry, rhetoric, grammar, dialectic, and music. Cain's descendants, namely Jubal, is credited with inventing the harp and the flute. Tubal-Cain is the original craftsman in iron and bronze, and Jubal was the first breeder of livestock. We read about that in Genesis chapter 4, verses 20 to 22. They made wine, and according to Josephus, Cain's descendants were notoriously lascivious and renowned for excessive partying. In contrast, Seth's lineage were moral and renowned for worshipping the Lord. However, according to Josephus, they were all corrupt by the 7th generation, Cain's seed and Seth's seed. Then Satan threw a giant curveball into the equation. In Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 4, we're told, "Now it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all of whom they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is also flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. They were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. Thus, after the sons of God mated with women and produced giants, God reduced mankind's lifespan to 120 years. The sons of God are fallen angels. They came to earth and left their first estate, which includes their heavenly bodies, to procreate with women. The Greek word for habitation can be translated as dwelling place or abode, and also the dwelling place for the soul or spirit. In 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 2, it refers to the heavenly bodies that believers receive. We get an upgrade, whereas the angels chose to have a downgrade and ditch their heavenly bodies. And in Jude chapter 6 verse 1, it refers to the dwelling place, the original state or position that the angels abandoned. Angels were not designed to procreate, but it appears they can have sex. Like many witches claim that they've had sex with Satan or other fallen angels who are sometimes known as ascended masters, and people claim they have sex with succubus and incubus. Gary Wayne, who is a legend in this field, maintains the sons of God are seraphim angels, and their offspring looked similarly serpentine, replete with cone heads and long necks. The name Anakim, which is one of the tribes mentioned in the Bible, means long necks. The Bible is replete with stories about giants, and Josephus and other ancient texts also attest to giants, not least the Epic of Gilgamesh. Giants unquestionably existed. The Smithsonian Institute admitted to destroying tens of thousands of human bones in the early 1900s as part of a massive cover-up. The devil doesn't want the sheeple to believe in giants because it evidences the veracity of the Bible. He wants the world to believe in aliens, not fallen angels or angels. Hence the indoctrination of heliocentric cosmology. The sun is the CEO of our alleged solar system. Satan, who is the god of this world, knew Jesus was coming. He remembered what God told him about the woman's seed crushing his head. Thus he endeavoured to jeopardize the bloodline that Jesus would inherit. Jesus had to be fully human to redeem humankind. The Kingsman Redeemer comes from the same family, which is comprised of the same substance or essence. Jesus couldn't be part Nephilim. Thus Satan's plan was to corrupt the human genome by polluting it with fallen angel DNA. Nephilim means giants, but it's an umbrella term for hybrids, as some had 12 fingers and 12 toes, and others had double rows of teeth. The Book of Enoch and other texts that were found along with the Dead Sea Scrolls, including the Book of Jubilees and the Book of Giants, elaborate on the Genesis 6 narrative, as does the Book of Jasher. That is, 200 Watcher-class angels swore an oath on Mount Hermon to transgress their heavenly boundaries and mate with women to produce Nephilim. This oath was recorded on the Khazar Antar, which was the highest temple in the ancient world, located on the summit of Mount Hermon. It bore the inscription, "According to the command of the greatest and holy God, those who take an oath proceed from here." Hermon was known as the Mountain of the Oath. This biblical account corroborates with stories from the ancient world that attest to gods coming from heaven and mating with women to produce demigods. All ancient cultures are on the same page because they share the same history, and serpents are always a feature. The royal families descended from the so-called gods, hence their divine right to rule to this day. The Nephilim were a violation of God's creation, and they had a ruinous effect on humanity. According to the Kebra Nagast, the women died during childbirth as these monsters burst forth. It states, having split open the bellies of their mothers, they came forth by their navels. Maybe this inspired the movie Alien.
The first thing that I'm going to do when I get back is to get some decent food.
I can dig it, man. I don't want to talk about what they do. I'm eating this. What's the matter? The food ain't that bad, baby.
Eat your patrons. What? Hey, what's
Oh, God!
No, no.
Don't touch it! Don't touch it!
These giants had insatiable appetites and ate anything that moves, literally, including lions for breakfast and even humans. It's noted that before the flood, men were to be, by God's decree, vegetarians. God did not want a horror show whereby humans and animals eat each other. The dastardly giants violated humans and animals in every way, including sexually. In addition to creating Nephilim, The Watchers also taught humanity the secret arts, including astrology, alchemy, and magic. They made them acquainted with the plants and the cutting of roots, which was part of their sorcery. This corroborates with shamans who claim that the gods told them which vine and roots to mix to create ayahuasca, which contains dimethyltryptamine, the DMT, the spiritual molecule. They taught them gnosis and how to transcend the physical body and Isis's veil. They taught them how to activate their spirit bodies through demonic assistance. That is the acquisition of the Philosopher's Stone, which is the cornerstone of witchcraft. The Watchers taught humanity how to make weapons for war, including knives and swords and shields and breastplates, and they taught them how to make jewellery and costly ornaments with costly stones, and they taught the women how to make themselves beautiful through eye makeup. Like today, the focus was on themselves and materialism, not God. In Enoch chapter 8, verses 1 through 2, we're told, "And there arose much godliness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray and became corrupt in all their ways." The Watchers also taught them how to perform abortions. In Enoch chapter 69, verse 12, we're told about the smiting of the embryo in the womb, that it may pass away. The Watchers lured the people away from God by introducing Sabiism, which is the worship of the sun, moon, and stars. The worship of Yahweh was replaced with the worship of nature. God became nature, and humans are also part of nature, which means there is no sin, and humans are elevated to the status of God, being comprised of the same natural essence. And so-called nature spirits could be called upon for assistance. They could be appeased through blood sacrifices and orgies. The fallen sons of God also passed on the secrets of heaven, as they were there when God created our world, and they were privy to his methods. Thus, they also taught humankind how to mix different species of animals, which led to the creation of all kinds of gross and weird creatures. They created monsters like the Tyrannosaurus Rex. God's otherwise beautiful creation was beyond the pale, literally. It broke God's heart, and he repented that he had ever made humans and animals. Humans constantly thought about wickedness. There was no hope for them. Respectively, we can but wonder if we're living in the days of Noah today. God punished the Watchers by turning their hybrid kids against each other, which led to a civil war, which was subsequently portrayed as the Clash of the Titans in Greek mythology. The Watchers had to watch their beloved Nephilim children kill each other off in a massive bloodbath, and then God banished the Watchers to Tartarus, which is the lowest level of hell, and enchained them. It's believed the animal hybrid creatures were then created to provide host bodies for the now disembodied Nephilim spirits. These unclean spirits are earthbound because they were born on earth. In Enoch chapter 15 verse 8 we're told, "And now the giants who are produced from the spirits and flesh shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling. And they hunger and thirst, but they can never satisfy these desires. Hence demons like a host to embody, and those they possess receive supernatural powers and strength, superhuman strength. They're part of Satan's army, and their mission is to destroy humankind." Genesis chapter 6 verse 9 tells us that Noah was the only righteous man on earth who was perfect in his generations. His bloodline was not contaminated by Nephilim shiz. Thus God told Noah to build an ark at a time when the world had never known rain, and load up all the animals and his family and get on board, as God was sending a flood. God would destroy the ancient world and start again. He would literally wipe the slate clean. It's possible that God used this method before with regards to the alleged pre-Adamic civilization, given the water and darkness at the start of creation. God closed the ark's door, and then water burst forth from the fountains of the great deep, and water was unleashed from above as the windows of the firmament were opened. The earth was pummeled by a deluge. The ancient world agrees there were giants and a great flood, and both are supported by evidence, not least the Grand Canyon, the fish fossils and shells across mountain ranges, the extensive fossil graveyard, the sediment and geological evidence, the circa 2000 flood legends, and also the evidence of giants. I marvel at the cognitive dissonance. The Bible is evidenced everywhere in nature, and people refuse to be intellectually honest with the evidence. They try their hardest to conjure up other explanations, however retarded. They try to hide God, which is impossible. We're such hard-headed and stiff-necked people. The human family was reborn through Noah's 3 sons, namely Ham, Shem, and Japheth, and their 3 wives, and it looked promising. God and Noah made a covenant that God would never flood the earth again, and Noah and his descendants would walk with the Lord. But literally, within no time, it all went to crap again. Ham's son Cush rebelled against Noah and Yahweh, and his son Nimrod revived the pre-flood world antics. The antediluvian people, including the giants, knew that the flood was coming, and they stashed their secret knowledge, which Nimrod then discovered. Nimrod founded Babylon, which was renowned for its harlotry and idolatry, and he introduced astrology. We're told Nimrod became a mighty man, which is likened to the Nephilim. A mighty one is likened to the Nephilim. He became transhuman. And the Mystery Babylon religion was established. King Nimrod was deified as the sun god, the life giver, and his wife, Semiramis, who was also his mother, was deified as the moon goddess, the queen of heaven. He was Baal and she was Balti, lord and lady, and together they reigned over the one world kingdom of darkness. Then Uncle Shem, who was not at all pleased with Nimrod's black magic, which included human sacrifice and blood drinking, killed Nimrod. Nimrod's body was chopped up into 14 pieces, and each part was given to a different region in the kingdom, warning them not to practice such evil. Thus, the mysteries were underground. These secret arts were harboured by the secret snake brotherhood. One must be initiated into the mysteries. Semiramis claimed that Nimrod's spirit was in the sun, just as her spirit would return to the moon when she died. But as it transpired, however, not everyone was convinced that Nimrod was the sun god and life giver, and Semiramis was the moon goddess, and so she had to make a miracle happen. Semiramis knew the Genesis 3:15 prophecy about the woman's seed, and she decided to take her religion further. She claimed that Nimrod, through the rays of the sun, impregnated her, and she conceived Tammuz. Tammuz was the fulfillment of prophecy. He was the chosen one. Tammuz was the son of the sun god. It's believed some pagan priest was the actual father. Tammuz was then killed by a wild boar when he was 40, and after Semiramis grieved for 40 days, 1 day for each of his years, Tammuz resurrected and through the power of her tears, and went to join his father Nimrod in the sun. Thus the Father and the Son are one, the same one God, and Semiramis is mother of both. The first unholy trinity was born in Babylon. Nimrod was also the man with the plan to build the Tower of Babel to reach heaven. Babel figuratively means confusion, but literally means the gateway of God. Perhaps they believed that the firmament was within reach. It was a rational endeavour. According to Josephus, Nimrod wanted to kill God. It seems Nimrod was possessed, perhaps by Satan himself. God, however, thwarted their plans by bestowing different languages on all the workers and all the people. So they couldn't communicate and the project was abandoned. The populace scattered, going their separate ways with their own people groups, those who spoke the same languages, and new cultures were born, each with the same history and religion, but now communicated in different languages and more nuanced. Thus, the sun god goes by many names, not least Osiris. In addition to Nimrod becoming a mighty one, the giants also returned. There are different theories about how this happened, like they sheltered in underground caverns, or they made boats, or clung on to Noah's Ark, or there were multiple incursions of fallen angels coming to earth to mate with women, or Noah's daughters-in-law had defiled DNA. Giants came from both Ham and Japheth's lineage, but Shem's bloodline remained the pure Adamic DNA. It's understood the post-flood giants were not as large as the pre-flood giants, and their genes were diluted over time. God's people were instructed to wipe out the Nephilim and their idolatry. And whilst Joshua prevailed over the Holy Land, there was a diaspora, and giants did a shoot to other parts of the world, which is evidenced by their bones. Their bones are found worldwide. L.A. Marzulli did DNA testing on the elongated skulls in Peru, which rewrote history. It's believed these cone heads are evidence of Nephilim. When I first heard about his research, I was blown away, and I followed his Nephilim trail. These are my photos of the skulls in Paracas, Peru, and also my photo with L.A. Marzulli. The small cone head skull is believed to be an 18-month-old child. I had an epiphany some time ago when I was writing my book that the weird, grotesque and hybrid creatures that people encounter in the second heaven and DMT space correspond to the spirits of those ungodly creatures that were created in the antediluvian world. Howard Pittman, a Baptist minister who experienced a near-death experience and went to the second heaven, reported that there are spirit beings of thousands of different shapes and forms with diverse colouring. He said, many of the demons were in human shapes or forms, and many were in forms similar to animals familiar in our present world. Others were in shapes and forms too hideous to imagine. Some of the forms were so morbid and revolting that I was almost to the point of nausea. In addition to seeing giants and hybrids, including Lord Ganesh, who is half human, half elephant, and other Hindu gods with their flailing arms, and all kinds of peculiar concoctions which are gross to look at, people report seeing insectoids and aliens, grey aliens. When people take DMT, they commonly encounter serpents and also so-called aliens. The spirit world is replete with myriad demonic entities, each with different personalities and varying levels of intelligence, and they communicate telepathically. We also learn about monsters and hybrids in Greek mythology, in addition to the pantheon of gods, the powers and principalities that rule over certain geographical locations. In summary, the history of mankind is insane, but it's more insane to believe that the universe came from nothing. And the spirit world is real, as we'll each discover firsthand when we depart from our physical estate, when we shuffle off this mortal coil and venture forth into the great unknown. Steve Quayle highlights that the biggest cover-up of history is a cover-up of history, and in his dystopian novel 1984, George Orwell wrote, "Those who control the present control the past, and those who control the past control the future." The world is lied to because Satan is the father of lies, and he rules this world, and he is the author of confusion. Thus he conflates his satanic trinity with Trinitarian Yahweh, and he endeavoured to corrupt and confuse the true gospel by introducing Gnostic gospels and other false gospels. Satan is insanely clever, and he's always myriad steps ahead of the people he toys with. And he has his agents, his family, here on earth. The secret snake brotherhood has cascaded down the millennia, together with Satan's seed. Satan's seed continues to be at enmity with the woman's seed, and bloodlines are very important to the elites. However, we'll consider what this looks like and how there's nothing new under the sun in the next video.